What's good, YouTube? Jay Lee here. Got another Northwest podcast. I'm just going to do some free flow thinking and talking. Really don't have much planned here. I got a general idea of what I want to talk about, but nothing planned, nothing written down. So let's just do some free flow talking here. So, what I was thinking of recently in the last few years, I mean, obviously I've been thinking about this stuff, but recently in the last few, even just weeks and even the last year, kind of realizing like we're transitioning into a more enlightened space due to reality. And the reality is that men don't want to be marginalized anymore as far as in the viewpoint and minds of women. So I can't give you the exact reason why women are like this, but I think that a lot of it is precipitated and caused by feminism. Feminism has been turning women against men for half of a century, right? Some people argue that first wave feminism was wrong. Well, I don't know, man. I've always been for rights for people, basic rights. So I could never really agree with I could never really disagree with classic feminism. But where I have to draw the line, which is an obvious line that needs to be drawn, is at second wave feminism, which basically, pit women against men, gave them a bunch of propaganda, fuel for the fire to hate us. And I believe modern, particularly second wave, when I say modern, I mean second and third wave feminism, I believe that modern feminism is satanic. Classic feminism, I think, is righteous. I think people deserve rights, basic rights, the right to vote, the right to choose, etc., freedom of self-choice and all that. That's fine. Okay, and just like when it comes to freedom of speech, there's consequences for your freedoms, right? You have to, you can't just say whatever you want at any time. You have to check yourself. You have to regulate yourself, regulate what you say, because what people say can be dangerous. What you say can be, you can't just threaten somebody, or, you know what I mean? Like there's definitely lines. Like, yes, you have freedom of speech, but there's lines that can be crossed, right? So it's the same when it comes to freedom of, being. Yes, as a woman, you're free and you're not oppressed by men, if you ever were, which is an argument, right? That's definitely an argument that I talk about all the time. Were women really ever oppressed by men, or did men just take care of them? And, maybe there were times when women were viewed as second-class citizens, couldn't vote, etc., and because they were viewed as second-class citizens, maybe they were oppressed in the sense that, from in their day-to-day lives, in their interpersonal, behaviors and comings and goings with society, men talk down to them or put them aside, or this, that, and the third, right? Which is fine. That needs to change. Like, no, women are not second-class citizens. That's where I draw the line. There's a lot of talk, particularly with like Andrew Tate and guys like Fresh and Fit podcasts, where they really are borderline misogynists. I mean, there's no doubt about Andrew Tate. He's a misogynist, period. But somebody like Fresh and Fit, borderline misogynist, right? Like, it's like their rhetoric when they're talking down on women, when they're saying that women, really are second-class citizens, or it's okay for a man to cheat but not for a woman to cheat, and these kind of like obvious like double standards from a misogynistic viewpoint, like, yeah, that's a problem, right? So like, I don't go that far. Like, I like a balance, right? I like a balance. Like, I like fairness, right? The problem, though, is that feminism doesn't want to bury the past. Maybe there was oppression. Maybe there was, in society, in interpersonal relationships, there was men talking down to women, etc., or there was like, you know, oh, you can't come into this field, you can't teach, you can't be an academic, blah blah, you know, these challenges that women faced at that time. Maybe so, right? So what I say is, let's move past that and let's have equality, let's have fairness, let's have freedom of choice, etc. However, what feminism did was like created these militant, aggressive, angry women who really just started, you know, screwing around on men, started cheating on us, started treating us bad. And then you know, if you go to like a feminist page and you look at their rhetoric and you look at the stuff that they talk about, it is aggressive, it is anti-male, it is anti-masculinity, right? And they associate masculinity with oppression, which is their whole patriarchy theory, right? That's fine. Well, that's not fine. Obviously, that's the problem. Is that's not fine. That's not okay. So you're taking some. It's like, you know, just use an example. For instance, like there's slavery, right? There was slavery against blacks, right? You know, white people had slaves, whatever. Now that slavery is over, right? Let's say black people continued to like hate white people and continued to talk bad about white people, say, oh, all white people are the devil. And yes, some of them do, right? But the point is like, well, that was a period of time a long time ago. I didn't do that. I don't know why that happened. It just so happened to be white people who did that, even though Egyptians did that. So there's like, all, you know, even though black people had slaves too, even so there's nuance, but there's like, you know, no introspection into the nuance, no details into the nuance. It's just like there's this, it's like fight racism with racism kind of thing. It's like fight oppression, fight sexist oppression with sexist oppression. It's like, it's stupid. It's like it just perpetuates the problem. So one thing that I don't understand is like, why do women adhere to that? Why do women buy into it? And I think the reason why is because of empowerment. It kind of gives them this sense of empowerment. It's kind of like a betterment club or a self-help club. Like, oh, you're a feminist. Now you have all this empowerment and you're empowered, and yet it comes along with this, you know, hatred seed against men, right? Yes, now you're empowered and you're free and you're a woman. Hear me roar, you know, go girl, da da da, right? But yet, at the same time, it's preaching like, oh, men are this, men are trash, men are cheaters, men are losers, da 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 da, men are that, you know, all this negative stuff against men, right? So you have this empowerment program, if you will, which subtly teaches hatred, subtly teaches sexist issues, right? So when it comes to modern women, like a lot of them don't even realize that it was over before it even started. Like, or I shouldn't say over before it even started, but it was too late when you realized. And you know, women don't even realize that they're jacked up. Women don't even realize that they're living narcissistically, or they're immoral, or they're you know, egotistical, or they're bossy, or they're like, they don't even realize, like, they actually low-key are using men, low-key hate men, low-key, you know, talk bad about men, or you know what I'm saying, like, and we're not allowed to talk about that, but we're allowed to let feminism have a platform, right? Modern feminism have a platform to kind of, you know, impregnate, if you will, all these young women's mentalities with this poison, to distill in them this anti-masculinity kind of propaganda, right? This is what fuels these women's lives, you know, and then they hit 30 and they hit 40 and then they're like, oh, you know, what happened? What, you know, where's my loving knight in shining armor? Or why is my life so shitty? Or like, why am I single at 40? Or like, you know, all this stuff. And it's like, because you weren't raised right. No one told you that you shouldn't go be a fit. It's like parents are raising their daughters, and then they go off to college, and then they get indoctrinated and warped and damaged at 18, 19 by radical feminism at these colleges, right? And what's crazy to me was, you know, something that like perpetually boggles me is like, why is it so uniform? Why are these women not recognizing that this thing that they're adhering to when they leave off for college, this modern feminism, is toxic? Why are they not realizing that it's toxic? That's something that's always kind of, it's like, do they not have the ability to recognize that, you know? And so I was reading something recently, which is, you know, something spiritual, has to do with the Bible, and it was talking about how women are not only physically, I hate to use the word inferior, but we'll say less, I'll say weaker. So women are weaker physically. Not only are they weaker physically, but they're weaker mentally. Not necessarily intellectually, quote unquote, but just mental capacity in general. And that really stuck out to me, because I was like, that kind of makes a lot of sense, because it's like, why do they keep making these bad decisions? Why do they not recognize what morality is? Why do they not recognize what normality is? And you realize it's layered, man. It's a deep system. And I say system on purpose. It is a system. I believe it's a system that is run by the devil. I believe it's a system that is subtly satanic. You know, the devil likes to hide. He doesn't like to be too obvious, because if you're too obvious, then you get exposed and called out. You know, there's a lot of negativity hidden within modern feminism. There's a lot of really bad, really corrupt stuff going on in modern feminism, such as, oh, it's okay to be promiscuous, it's okay to be, you know, have no morals, it's your body, you can kill your children, just murder your children, like, you know, it's like, oh, you know, you won't have any regret, you're free to live your, you know, it's all hidden behind this like empowerment guise. Oh, you're empowered to kill your children, you're empowered to sleep around, you're empowered to be a slut. Like, it's bananas, man. But this is, and so that's why I say, you know, this is what's going on, and that's why I say that it's over before it started, right? Because by the time you hit 30, you're all, and it's fast. Trust me, it's fast. Life goes fast, you know, and that's an unfortunate drawback of, you know, life is just hard, and it's like the only reason we're even having this conversation is really because of the Industrial Revolution. If we still lived in the 1800s, the 19th century, there'd be no time to talk about this kind of stuff, because we'd be in survival mode. The only reason women are even allowed, and pardon me, I shouldn't say the word allow. The only reason women are even able to go be promiscuous and go live this hedonistic, degenerate lifestyle, and then turn around and blame men, because this is what modern feminism encourages, right? Let's be realistic. That's what it is. It's a modern hedonistic lifestyle which blames men for everything, and like use the excuse of, oh, men this, men that, so therefore it's okay for me to go sleep with everybody, right? You know, and that's why I say it's satanic. But the only reason they're able to do that is because we live in a society that men made good. That men made, there's access of ease here. We have time to philosophize. We have time to think about things. We have time currently to do these things, right? So it boggles me too that, like, just with that amount of, you know, we do live in an unprecedented time, and you don't have to be a stay-at-home oppressed Christian suffering wife necessarily. If that's what you want, great. If you feel that gives glory to God, fine. You don't necessarily have to be that. You can be whatever you want to be, and yet in that scenario where you can be wherever you want to be, a lot of these women just choose and conform to this feminist ideal, and it's there's a lot of corruption going on within that feminist camp. So to me, it's like, yeah, it's over before it even started, because by the time by the time you're 20 years old, if you are indoctrinated into feminism, if you have converted to feminism, so to speak, from your parents' teachings, and I could go so deep on this because I talk about this a lot, how the parents failed as well. Parents don't know how to parent these days. They're not equipped. Parents don't know how to raise quality daughters. They don't know how to raise a moral daughter when sex is everywhere. We live in a porn culture. Everybody's hooking up. How do you raise a daughter in that? And so it's like, it's impossible. It's over. It's over before it even started. So the audacity, and I always use that word audacity because it is audacious, and it's not audacious in a positive way. It's audacious in a negative way. The audacity of modern feminism is really just that it corrupts. It corrupts, these modern relationships. So I look at it like, it's over. It's over before it started, and it really is audacious of these young women to think that they can have their cake and eat it too. And that they're better than men. And this is the same sin that happened in the Garden of Eden with Eve. Satan didn't go to Adam straight away. He went to Eve to get to Adam, right? And, why are you bringing up, the Garden of Eden? Why are you bringing up Adam and Eve? And because this is the same thing that's going on today. That same temptation that Satan came to Eve to get Adam and Eve, to ruin them both, Satan is doing to modern women today. He went to the women to get to the men, because the woman is the counterpart of the man. The man isn't full, or he isn't whole or one unit until he meets his wife or his woman, his helpmeet. This is what Satan is trying to damage. He doesn't want people falling in love and getting married at a young age. So and the reason why is because that would, society would be better. There wouldn't be these problems. There wouldn't be this, that, and the third. So what he wants is to ruin that. He wants to ruin the institution of marriage. He wants to ruin the institution of morality, right? And you do this by getting them young. If they're 20, no, they shouldn't go to church and get married and settle down. No, go to the clubs, go have your fun, go, go sleep around, go date. And then you have these people who are spending a decade from 20 to 30 just dating around, or longer, 20 to 40s in in a lot of these cases these days. A lot of the thing that actually causes them to settle down is, okay, they get an STD. Well, no more fun now, because now you got to tell all your future partners that you got HSV or whatever, right? HPV or all these things, right? All these I don't even know what they're called, but who knows? There's probably new ones popping up now too, right? So you got that. So like a lot of times that will get them out of that little fun period of sleeping around, right? The other thing is having a kid. A lot of times they get pregnant, and then they got to settle down, and it's like at that point everything changes. So your fun's over, and now you got to find. It's like, it's a sad thing, because it's like your whole life really is ruined, or it's lowered in a way, because it's like, on the one hand, like, you got this kid that you got to take care of, and you need to find a man who's good enough to take care of him. On the other hand, it's not his kid, right? So that's like, that's a shitty scenario. That's not normal or natural, right? And that's the new norm, quote unquote norm, right? Because a lot of times these women just, they get pregnant. They go out, sleep around, have fun, get pregnant. And of course the guy doesn't stick around because he's just having fun. He didn't really love her. It's over. So there's just single moms everywhere. Single mom, single mom, single mom. Dude, do not be a stepdad. Just don't do it. Never. Right? And guys need to know that. You got to have consequences for your actions. Like, they can't just go out and sleep around. Oh, yeah, well, I'll just settle down with this beta chump and call him a real man. All this bullshit, right? So, it is a negative road, that feminist road. It's a negative road, right? Oh, it's okay to be promiscuous. It's your body. Oh, it's okay to kill your child. It's your body. Oh, it's okay to just go sleep around. No one can judge you. Social stigma doesn't exist anymore, right? For that. It's just like, boy, you're really destroying civilization there. You're destroying the sanctity and the normality and the morality of marriage when you sleep around. And so, to me it's crazy how, like, the new norm now is like, oh yeah, she's sleeping around and she's gonna settle down, and after she's got a kid, or after she's got like 100 guy lay count, and it's just like, that's the new norm. That's what we want. And no, it's not what guys want. Guys want something more. And this is why guys like Andrew Tate, or Fresh and Fit, or Rollo Tomasi, or Donovan Sharp, or Richard Cooper. This is why these guys are because they're the guys coming along and saying what we all think. They're saying what we're all feeling. Yeah, we don't want loose, promiscuous women. Yes, we like sex. Yes, we want to hook up as guys because we got a sex drive on the one hand. But that doesn't mean we don't want love. And it doesn't mean we want some used up single mom. And sorry to say, maybe women don't put importance on this, but guys do. Guys put importance on body count. Guys put importance on, how promiscuous you've been, how promiscuous you were before he met you. It matters. It matters to us because it's easy for you to get into bed with any guy. It's hard for guys to get into bed with any women. So if you got a high body count, it just means that you had your fun. And women act like, oh, men can have their fun too. Not really. Not in the same way women can. It's not the same thing, right? And so, but it's not a matter of whether it's fair or not. It's a matter of whether it's right or not. Right? It's a matter of whether it's moral or not. Men want women with not a high body count. We want women who are not super used up. We want women who are not used goods. Right? That's just the reality. And we don't live in that type of society anymore. And then we're wondering why marriage is not working. We're wondering why people are not getting married anymore. Why young people are not having children anymore. We're wondering why society's falling apart. We're wondering why there's a school shooting every other day. We're wondering why, the family unit is falling apart, and these kids need drugs, and these kids need therapy, and it's like, well, duh, they're coming from broken homes. They're coming from scenarios where there's no father in this, in their life, because their dad was just hooking up with mom and he didn't really love her. And it's like, these are real issues, and feminism doesn't talk about that. It just says, oh, you go, girl, you go, be empowered. Well, what if that means that your life is ruined because you slept around, or this, that, and the third? It's like, it's just bananas, and I know nothing will change it, but it's funny to me how in this era where, like, people are like flabbergasted that, like, somebody like Andrew Tate exists, it's like, well, yeah, of course, he represents everything that a man, that a man could express, so to speak. meaning like he's made the money, so a man could do that, and yet even though he's made the money, he's not a cuck. Like a lot of guys, they make the money and then they settle for the first girl who comes along, right? And women will take advantage of that too. Women will come along and be like, oh, here's a guy who's naive, and they, they can sniff it out. Like, oh, here's a guy who just recently got successful. He's not very good looking. I could tell he's not a player. And like, women know this shit. They know this stuff. They can tell if you're regularly getting laid. They can tell if you're doing well with other women, and they'll purposely choose a guy who's docile, who's beta, who's not succeeding with other women, because that guy's predictable. That guy can be manipulated. He can be used for their purpose. They want a guy at the end of their carousel ride that they can settle down onto, who's got money, right? So here's someone like Andrew Tate who got the money and he didn't simp out. He didn't take the simp route. He took the player route, which is whatever. I mean, he's not an. I've talked bad about Andrew Tate in the past. He's not an example of what you want to be as far as his moral character, right? He's arrogant. He's brash. He's a braggart. He's really just kind of uncomfortable to watch because he's just so narcissistic, and it's almost to the point where like he's almost dumb, because it's like you've got to be kind of stupid to hype yourself up, because it's like we're just fallen, we're damaged human beings, human beings are damaged, right? So anybody who's like, oh, I'm the top G, I've arrived, like, I'm the best, I'm the greatest, right? Like, anybody who's doing that is not a rational person who's living in reality. You lose as a human a lot. Sure, we pursue excellence, right? We pursue success, etc., but you lose a lot. You take a lot of losses. So anybody who's coming along acting like they never lose, or they're just the top G, top, right? Anybody who's doing that is not normal. But what I did agree with him was I agreed that I agree with his assessment on female nature. He nails that. Okay, I'll never say Andrew Tate is not an intelligent guy. He nails female nature. He nails it. But it's not hard to nail. This information has been floating out there in the red pill channels and the MGTOW channels for at least a decade, right? It's out there. It's been out there on the internet, and men are adhering to it. Men are agreeing with it. Men are relating with it, etc. Because this is what we go through. So anybody who comes along and says the basic tenets or the basic truths of bad female behavior and what men go through, etc., is going to be people are going to listen to that, right? And his thing is that he just nailed the whole, or not nailed, but he just expressed the whole, oh, I'm the alpha male, I'm the top dog. He kind of, and that's where I shy away from him, where I'm like, all right, this guy's just he's a walking gimmick. He's trying to sell stuff, whatever. He's not the Messiah. He's not he's not even as moral as Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson doesn't put women down. He's not disparaging to women. He's not trying to say women are weak and inferior and all this kind of stuff. And if they are, they are. But if they are, that's not by much. But if you listen to Andrew Tate, he acts like they're just nothing. And the irony is that women, maybe stupid women, will go after a guy like that, because the weird catch-22 about female nature is whenever a guy's putting them down, for some reason they're attracted to that. But anyway, at least given the guy's successful and good looking. But that's more female nature. That's more the intricacies and how jacked up female nature is. But so I agree with him when he's talking about female nature. But what's crazy is that these guys come along. They whether it's, like I said, Andrew Tate or Rollo Tomassi, this guy, that guy, whatever, and like the red pill guys know the red pill, because we've experienced it. We know female nature. We know women like money. We know women like bad boys. We know women like, we know women respond when we treat them bad or this, that. It's funny, But all this stuff guys have studied, we've figured women out, and like they're mad about that. They're like, oh, we gotta deplatform Andrew Tate, and we gotta attack. And it's just like, you know, what's funny is like, all this could be so much better if you just like admitted that you were wrong. You know, women, if women just admitted they were wrong, like, yeah, we took it too far. We shouldn't have been hating on men because they built this nice society for us, and we shouldn't have been out sleeping around because there's real consequences. And instead of doing all that, they just double down and they make excuses and they change the goalposts and they try to cover up their bad deeds with future good deeds. They're like, oh, well, yeah, I had this horrible life, or not horrible, but I had this very immoral, you know, sinful life before I met my husband, but then he came along and everything just, it's like, no, that's not, like, what is that? And you'll see it, and it's like, it's where women like to have their cake and eat it too. You know, it's where like, oh, you want to get away with it. You want that's really what you want. You don't want to like take precautions beforehand, you know, and be like, nah, I better not do all that. You want to go do all that and then have the thing that you should have had before you went and did all that. And I don't think it works like that. All those, you know, many of these modern women who are getting married, etc., have all this past in this lake. I think it's going to affect the marriage, and I think a lot of these marriages are going to end up in divorce. I think there's a lot of baggage that women bring into these relationships, or these marriages, or whatever you want to, you know, however the relationship, if it's a marriage or a partnership or whatever, you move in with somebody, you're bringing in all the baggage that you had before. And so when you're moving in with someone at 30 or 40, that's 10, 20, 30 years of baggage that these women have. I mean, by the time they start dating, what are they, like 15, 17? I mean, I was dating at 10, or I was, you know, I had girlfriends at 10. Like, people start young, you know, so these girls are out here, you know, dating and having relationships at 15, 17, maybe younger, but hopefully not, but at least 15, 17. You know, and so what is that? So let's say 17, 27, 37. What's that? 2 decades. So by the time you settle down and get married at 37 or 35 or 30 or whatever, you got at least a decade or a decade and a half of just messing around, right? Jumping from guy to guy, sleeping around, and it's like you got no baggage from that, really. So I think a lot of what these women think is they think they can have their cake and eat it too, and they just don't realize, like, there's nuance in life. There's nuance. You know, you're going to have consequences. You're going to have some negativities. And so what they want is they want to remove the accountability. And they've always wanted that. They've always wanted to remove the accountability. They've always wanted to remove the consequences. And so what they do is they attack anybody who's speaking the truth. Because what does the truth imply? The truth implies that, hey, wait a minute, there's consequences. The truth implies that there's accountability. So they don't like the truth anymore. The only person who doesn't like the truth is somebody who's trying to hide something. The only person who doesn't like the truth is somebody who has skeletons in their closet that they're not proud of, or that they know that they're... Here's what it is. Women know that their value is lowered, but they want to try to see if that they can change the goalposts. They want to try to see if they can distort the value system. So they want to try to nip it in the bud and act like men should accept promiscuity. Men should be okay with sleeping around. Well, men aren't. You know, quality men want a woman who's not used. Why? Because when you think about your loved one, when you think about the person who you honor and you have a sanctified relationship with, if that person has a past where they were anything but honorable and sanctified or moral, you know, that's going to affect the relationship, as it should, because it matters, you know. And here's my viewpoint, is that people should get married at like age 20. People say, oh, that's young, you're a different person you are when you're 20 or 30. Sure. But just because you're a different person at 30 than you are at 20 doesn't mean that your partner, your husband, or your wife can't grow with you during that time. Yes, it's possible to grow apart, and divorce it sucks, whatever, and yes, irreconcilable differences is a real thing. Yes, you might marry the wrong person, and a divorce comes from that. That's fine. You know, I'm not saying that's fine, but like that's a reality. It's fine that I mean, you know, that's gonna happen, right? But it's better than just being like, oh yeah, go sleep with 500 people. It's like, okay, yeah, you made a mistake and you married the wrong person, and maybe you got a divorce at 25. That's fine. You're with one person who you thought you loved and you got married to in good faith, in good expectation of the relationship. There was no weirdness or kinkiness or whatever, you know, sinful sexuality behind this. You love that person in earnest. Fine. And it didn't work out. That's fine. Like, that is fine. But when it comes to like, oh no, I just wanted to go be a slut, I wanted to go be kinky, I wanted to go be sinfully sexual, well, that's a problem. Because it's like, oh, okay, well, like, you opened your legs to a brand. And sorry to say, I don't know why women aren't like that, but guys are like that. We don't want our women out sleeping around every weekend for 5 years before they met us. That's just a fact. And so what women want to do is they want to attack that. They want to attack the value system. And they can't, because that's something that's ingrained in male nature. We don't want used goods. So what a lot of guys have to do, unfortunately, is they got to settle. A lot of guys have to settle for used goods because that's our only choice. That's our only choice. It's either that or being alone. And that's not fair, and that's not right. And women know that. Women know that. And so what you really have, and again, it's funny because I talk about this all the time, but feminism really is just a gender superiority cult. That's all it is. So what you have in today's day and age is you have women who are, whether consciously or subconsciously, they are, or they believe that they're better than men, stronger than men, have more social prowess or power than men. When you control it's like controlling water. When you control a necessity of life, such as water, housing, right, food, those are necessities of life. Guess what else is a necessity of life? Sexuality, intimacy, love. Those are necessities. Those are necessities of life. Physicality, sexuality, intimacy, and love. Those are necessary aspects to living a fulfilled life. People who are alone, they don't have relationships, they don't have sexual touch, they're miserable. It's a part of life. So what women have done is they're like, okay, we're gonna limit this. We're not gonna give this out for free. We're gonna give it out to people, to the men who earn it. We're gonna give it out to the men who we deem are worthwhile, and that blueprint for what man, that archetype for what man is worthwhile, has a lot to do with their values. So if their values as a whole are about feminism, which is, pro promiscuity, pro quote unquote female body empowerment, which is basically just like, yeah, you can go have sex, it's your body, you can kill your kids, it's your body, etc., right? So if that's your value system, you're going to choose guys based on that value system, right? And particularly if they consciously are trying to manipulate how men think by using sexuality, this is what I see. Women, you're not a liberal, or you voted for Trump, I'll never date you, I'll never have sex with you, or you know what I mean? Like, it's like, okay, maybe that's not the best example, but you get my point. Is like, if they don't like the way you vote, or they don't like this, but like they're just gonna, like, I mean, that's hypergamy, hypergamy mixed with eugenics, I guess you could say, or I don't know what that is, but it's like, only choosing guys that that fit your criteria, and your criteria is based on immorality, your criteria is based on atheism, your criteria is based on witchcraft, your criteria is based on astrology, like, like, it's like all the things that these young women are into. It's nuts, man. So like, you're literally not allowing men to have intimacy, not allowing men to have sex, not allowing men to get into solid, fulfilling relationships, which is a necessary part of, human happiness or human fulfillment, because it's like a bodily function. Like, no, you don't need sex to survive, but you need sex to, live a fulfilling life. You need a relationship to live a fulfilling life. No, you don't have to have a relationship to, bottom line, be alive. But as far as like happiness and fulfillment, like, you need relationships. I believe this is how we're created, or we just are this way. You're miserable, you're alone. You ever see these guys, these black pill guys, like, oh, no one, like, because they think they're too ugly, or maybe they are, or whatever, but it's like, they're miserable. People who are not in relationships, not having sex, they're miserable. And women know this. And so, I don't know to say that, like, it's a form of torture, it's a form of attack, it's a form of punishment, it's a form of whatever you want to call it, but to deny a bodily necessity for an entire gender, which is half the population, which half the human race, that's pretty incredible, And I believe it's like that in the westernized world. I believe these things are going on. I believe this is a part of the choosing process. It's a part of the exclusion process, et cetera, when it comes to the way women choose men. And that's a crazy thing to think about, man. So like, oh, if you're against abortion, then she's not gonna date you. It's weird. So it's like, I don't know what you call it, man. I guess it's a form of it's a kind of eugenics. Ultimately, it's definitely social engineering, right? So then you got the opposite side. So it's like, oh, well, why don't you just marry a trad woman, or what? You know what I mean? And it's like, you can't win, because then you got to have money, and then it's like, oh, well, you're just owning the woman, right? She's your stay-at-home mom, and you pay for her. And is that the way it's supposed to be? I don't know, man. But all I know is it's not equal between the sexes. I guarantee you that. There's no equal access to relationships. There's no equal access to sex. And women want to complain about how, like, men get paid more. First of all, I don't think that's true. I think it's a myth, and it's been debunked. But even if it was true, it's like, okay, well, men get paid more, but women get just complete access to something that we work our whole lives to get, which is sex and a relationship, or what. It just doesn't happen. Men just don't get that. Women get it all, and they don't see it, and they don't recognize that. They don't. Oh yeah, I'm incredibly privileged. They don't get it. They have this, particularly because they're bombarded with this, feminist propaganda, which is constantly telling them that you're oppressed, right? And it's just like, no, you're not. You're not oppressed. You're really not oppressed. Oh, because a guy who wants to love you doesn't want you to have slept with 70 guys before he met you. Like, oh, that's oppression? Like, no, dude, that's just you not being a moral person, and then there's consequences for that. But anyway, I'm just kind of going in circles, I think, at this point, so I'm going to end it. But yeah, man, we live in this weird world where, like, you know, these radical modern feminists are out here just rogue, you know, no morals. They don't want to be the wife to one man. They got insane standards. I don't know, man. It's a crazy world, man, you know, and there's no real answer for it. I think, you know, at the end of the day, guys are going to believe what they believe, and the only time they're not is if, you know, maybe a woman you know, gives them the time of day, and then they'll probably conform and convert to her viewpoints, or, you know, just to make her happy. And it's a sad thing, man. You don't want to be a cuck like that. So Andrew Tate represented somebody who wasn't conformed to that, and he got deplatformed. So I don't know exactly why he got deplatformed. Like, I don't know if he was inciting, but his message was misogynistic ultimately at the end of the day, even though he was right on about female nature. So anyways, I feel like I'm going in circles. This is just kind of been a free flow kind of talk, and I wanted to throw some things out there. But I appreciate you guys listening. Hope y'all are doing well. It's been Jay Lee, Northwest Podcast. Peace.